everybody. Today we're going to be reading chapter 7 from The Biggest Story. Now, if you've been following so far, you know that God created God's people. He created his people, gave them promises, cared for them, protected them, but they just never seemed to want to listen or follow him. In chapter 6, things got really bad, it looked like. So what's going to happen in chapter 7? Is God going to be able to keep his promises even though his people seem to want to continue to sin and not know him? Well, I guess we're going to have to read and find out. You ready? Believe it or not, God's promises hadn't gone anywhere. In fact, God kept on making more promises all the time. God promised that the snake crusher, Abraham's child, Judah's lion, David's son, would come from Bethlehem. God promised he would be born of a virgin. God promised a messenger to prepare the way. God promised that the deliverer would die and live again and be a light to the nations. God promised lots of amazing things. But Israel was too busy disobeying God's commands and ignoring God's warnings to notice. God sent miraculous prophets like Elijah and Elisha, and rebuking prophets like Amos and Malachi, and sad prophets like Jeremiah, and good news prophets like Isaiah. It didn't matter which ones God sent or how many. The people never listened, not for very long anyway. And so one day it happened. God stopped sending the prophets. No more warnings, no more direction, no more word from the Lord, only silence for 400 years. God had sent prophets, priests, and kings. He started out with Adam and started over with Noah. He chose Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. He gave Moses the law. He sent Israel judges. He raised up deliverers. He conquered enemies. He provided sacrifices. He lived among his people in a tent and in a temple. God gave them every opportunity and 10,000 chances, but still sin and the serpent seemed to be winning, until all of a sudden they lost. Wow, is that what you expected? God had been doing all of these things for them. He had been speaking to them, giving them kings, protecting them, making promises. And then all of a sudden it all just stopped. It seemed like the enemy, God's enemies, had won. And then something big was about to happen. Do you know what that is? How could God save his people? How could he transform them and change them so that their sin and that Satan was no longer controlling them, no longer having victory in their lives, that God's people would finally hear his voice, love him, and obey him? We'll have to find out next time. Love you, miss you, see you soon. Bye.